Hi, I'm Blarg257 and welcome to the Weekly Dashdance, where we look at where Melee has just been, where it's about to be, and how it might get there. And let's begin this week by looking back at, or should I say running back, Runback 2018. Axe, the number 1 seed, made winners semis against Shroomed, 3-0'd them without a hitch, and cruised to winners finals. On the other side, S2J and SFAT played one of the closer sets in memory between them, with S2J pulling it out in Game 5 to meet Axe in winners finals. After going down 2-0, S2J took the next two games with authority, driving the tension up into Game 5, where in the end, Axe regained control, dominated a last stock situation, and put himself in grands. After Shroomed and SFAT both navigated out of losers' quarters, SFAT whacked both Shroomed and S2J around, dropping one game between them and meeting Axe in grands, where in set 1, Axe hit a clutch thunder jolt to take Game 5 and the tournament, following it up with a pop-off in front of the home crowd. A great win for Axe as he reasserts his dominance as King of Arizona after it came into question last time he played here. Other highlights include Wes Balls' play, which was shaky as always, as on day 1 he lost to I Love Bagels, a Luigi ranked 5th in Arizona, and found himself playing Shroomed early in bracket on day 2, a set he barely lost and arguably should have had if not for a couple of crucial misses. But after losing, got his revenge on I Love Bagels to make top 16, then beat Captain Faceroll and Duck, before DQing out in losers' quarters, ending at a fine 5th place despite the trouble. There are 4 other placings I want to point out. Bladewise finished 5th at the expense of Squid, who finished 7th, remarkable placings for them both, but they in turn made top 8 at the expense of SoCal's young heroes, Franz and Mega Christmas, both placing 9th as Doc and Falco, respectively, in offering a bright future for the best region in the US. The full top 8 was Axe at 1st, SFAT at 2nd, S2J at 3rd, Shroomed at 4th, Bladewise and West Balls at 5th, and Duck and Squid at 7th. The dash forward this week begins and ends with a look at the upcoming Smashfactor 7, which is, as it proclaims, El Torneo Más Importante de América Latina. On this instance, it'll have its most talented competitor yet, as Armada throws his hat in the ring. He's unlikely to be touched by the field under him, but that field has players worth noting, like Nunn, both members of Grab and Go, DJ Nintendo and La Luna.
You gotta keep up, my mans. Look, I got the gun, look.
AZ Fox Meds, and the Mexican legends Javi and Eddie Mexico. Certainly a few interesting matchups to be played out there. That's all for the standard show, but I want to add a new element. I tire of just reading off the results and reading the previews, and I get the feeling y'all do too. So I'm going to add a new element. Every week, I'm going to do something else. Analysis, theory, maybe I'll recount a tournament experience or my own experience with competing as I do, or something on commentary. Regardless of what it is, it's hopefully going to have a bit more thought in it, promote a bit more discussion, be a bit more engaging, and just be a better experience for everyone. So this week, seeing as Pikachu won, I thought I'd ask the question of basically his tier placement. Pikachu is a character where we have to look at how much we should favor results or theory in thinking about how good he is. Obviously, I'm talking about Axe here, but he's not the only one. AMSA plays Yoshi, as you're likely aware, to a much greater degree than anyone before him, and the players of those two characters directly under these, as far as player ranking goes, are probably OKP, second in Utah as Pikachu, and Nebby, formerly known as Avalancer, second in the Netherlands as Yoshi. These guys are great, but AMSA and Axe clearly outclass them, in fact by so much that they begin to mess with people's perception of Melee. This is the Crimson Blurs tier list from 2 months ago. You're going to notice something strange. Pikachu is 5th in the game. The rationale he gives for this is that Pikachu's matchup spread with the 4 characters that are most common in brackets, those being Fox, Falco, Marth, and Captain Falcon, is better than everyone below him, even a character above him. Though he doesn't say which, he probably means Jigglypuff, who can, and often does, struggle against all 4 of those characters. This is a stance that seems to make sense in practice. Axe does relatively well against all 4 of these characters. Indeed, he beat 2 in winners and grands this week, and taken in a vacuum, it makes sense. However, there's an obvious counterpoint to it. Axe is Axe, and OKP is the second best Pikachu. In other words, Axe is very, very good, and no other players at his level have experience with the Pikachu matchup like he does with theirs. With that in mind, a more theory-based assessment might say that, though Puff does struggle with those 4 characters, Pikachu does even more so, which would put him back at the roughly 9th place position he's associated with. This is meant to be an example of going too far with results, so maybe it's not. Now, we have to take a look at what might be an example of going too far with theory. 3 years ago, the 3rd PAL tier list was released, polling all the top Europeans that could be found, and funnily enough, it's here we find an outlying placement for the other character I talked about, Yoshi. Here is Ice's tier list from this vote. I want you to keep in mind that this was 2015. AMSA existed, sure, and not only that, he was 22nd on the previous top 100 ranking, but to suggest that his character was third in the game at that time was preposterous. He was the only one playing Yoshi to near that level, and yet Ice does it here. This rationale makes sense because of how strange Yoshi is. We don't know what he's going to be like pushed to his limit because we have no idea what that path would look like, especially in 2015, 3 years before AMSA was top 10 in the world. This year, AMSA beat Hungrybox, but before this year, that was kind of a foreign concept. Ice is at a rather optimistic point of view here, seeming to believe that most everything that Yoshi can do in theory can be done in practice, which, if this is true, means that he holds untold bounty. However, even as AMSA has risen up the ranks, we've seen that in practice, Yoshi can be ridiculously difficult to pull off. Here, at Full Bloom 4, AMSA has Mango in the corner, but is unable to pull it out. I think there's a good chance that a reason for that was how hard his character is to execute. He couldn't get parries, double jump armor uses, and the like as easy, so in the struggle for the last hit, he faltered. This could suggest that Ice was overreaching, but notice that I have to qualify it with could. That's the thing about theory. It's impossible to pin down because it's theoretical and impossible to see fully realized. We can only try to make measured assumptions. Now, given those examples, I think it's agreeable that moderation in some form is best, but I certainly don't know to what degree, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Or maybe you're more extreme than I am, and you think Blur or Ice's direction is the correct way to go with result-heavy or theory-heavy thought. Or maybe you're just a bit jaded of us trying to pin these characters down in this way, and you think we should focus on something else. I'm not going to blame you if you are, it really is difficult. Regardless, I want to hear what you think, and I'm looking forward to reading everything and getting back to you next week.